let's kind of switch gears a bit and take a look at the auto industry. We're going to bring in Karl Brauer. He is the executive analyst for iSeeCars.com. Karl, thanks for coming on our program.
Hey, great to be on with you guys.
Okay, so much of the auto industry news is dominated by the electric vehicle. It is a safe bet that the world's car companies are focusing their energy on this auto show as well. What can you tell us about the DC Auto Show?
Yeah, it's just like a lot of the recent shows, which, as you know, are very focused on electric vehicles. That's the hot theme right now within the industry, and not just in the US, but globally. And it's where a lot, if not every one of the major global automakers focuses. And this includes also new startup automakers like Rivian and Fisker, ones that are just getting started. VinFast, they're all looking at this EV trend and the momentum that's behind it.
Okay, so we have established that auto shows are an effective mechanism for whetting global interest in what's new and what's hot. It may sound obvious, but why and what is being promoted this year? Any surprises? And you can talk about any kind of powered vehicles you wish.
Yeah, I think what you're seeing this year is kind of the expansion beyond, the traditional electric automakers, right? We've seen Tesla doing it for the longest time. Nissan's been in there. Chevrolet had the Bolt for a fair amount of time. But now you're really starting to see brands like Hyundai, Kia, Audi, Mercedes-Benz. I mean, in the past 6 to 12 months and in the next 6 to 12 months, we're going to see a lot of activity from these automakers. And so you're going to see auto shows really being flooded with all this new product activity from all these different automakers that are just turning the EV marketplace into a much richer, more diverse area than it used to be.
Yeah, it sounds like we really need to tear into this and do some kind of special, some kind of prolonged series, really, on where the EVs stand right now. But one thing you did touch upon there, talking about Mercedes, BMW, it's always a delicate dance. So how are European brands responding to tax subsidies for US-made EVs?
Yeah, they're really in a tough position because if they aren't already building their vehicles in the US and or the battery components for those vehicles in the US, they've got to hurry up and start doing that, because the new legislation essentially only qualifies vehicles that are largely, if not wholly, produced in North America or with free trade agreement countries. And we're seeing a bunch of activity, a lot of breaking of new ground for plants in the US. But, this takes years, obviously, Sean. You can't start making cars and batteries overnight. You got to spend years setting up the infrastructure. So I feel like the legislation was a little overly aggressive. It should have staged the timing a little more reasonably for all these automakers.
Yeah, that's interesting too. Let's pick up on that just a bit, because you did talk about how the technology is going to take some time to go from the drawing board to the factory, but this is also a technology that is growing yearly. So the plans that they may make now could be completely outdated by the time they're up and running. Well, not completely outdated, but obviously, at least go with one strike against them as they try to take their product to market.
The toughest thing about being an automaker is the lead time that you need on vehicles, right? You're usually designing a vehicle 2 to 3 years minimum before it hits showrooms. And whether it's the price of all the materials that goes into these cars, whether it's the consumer tastes, whether it's the economic cycle you're in, it's impossible to predict that kind of time frame. So, as you noted, yeah, it's tough to know. And all you need are a couple breakthroughs in battery technology, and you could totally change the way you're making the cars too.
Talk about breakthroughs. China has done so well in its batteries. Let's talk about BYD and China's EV brands. Compare and contrast those vehicles to the industry leader, Tesla.
They're growing quickly. I mean, they really are. And they're growing not only because of how many vehicles they're producing for China, but how well they're starting to migrate to other markets like Israel and New Zealand, Central America. And I think this is going to make it a very interesting race because we've seen these Chinese automakers grow, and we've also seen Tesla struggle a little bit, as we know. So, where are we going to be in 2 years? Are these Chinese automakers going to surpass Tesla in the global sales race? Very possibly. The momentum looks to be in their favor, at least right now.
And in the U.S., you still get pushback from areas where fossil fuel has long been an economic linchpin. But let's move on. Finally, lots going on with Elon Musk and Tesla right now. How are his other business dealings affecting his car brand? I've seen, not a lot, but some people say, I'm taking my car back. And what is behind the recent price cuts, and are consumers reacting?
Yeah, Tesla's really in the middle of a lot right now, and it's not really good. Most of it's bad, right? Whether it's the controversy stirred up with the Twitter purchase and some of the things he said and done on Twitter, which is making people second guess whether they want to support the company, whether it's the flush of new cars that we already talked about to compete with him, being on trial right now for security issues and stock issues and statements he made that affected those things. He's facing a lot of challenges at the moment, and it's right when we're looking at economic turmoil that could slow things down a bit too for higher priced car purchases. So I think it's tough to predict where Tesla is going to be in 6 months, but I think most people are feeling a lot less confident about the company than they did 6 months ago.
Well, Karl, you have motivated me here. From this set, I'm going to write up some kind of pitch that we need to kind of do a global look at where these EV cars are and where they're going. Always a pleasure. Karl Brauer, thank you so much for taking time to chat with us.
Great talking to you.